Hey everyone, this is a video tutorial showing you how to prepare Illustrator files for Risograph printing. Risograph printing is a process that is very similar to screen printing in that every time paper is run through the copier, a new layer of color is put down. So the important thing to note is that you have to think in layers of color. I will be working off of Adobe Illustrator CS6. First, I'm going to open the raizel template file which will be provided to you. Next, go to View and click on Overprint Preview, which will allow you to see how your inks interact with each other. Next, I'm going to pull out the swatches panel. As you can see, I've already put in all of the colors that are available to you through our printer. These are the Pantone solid uncoated color equivalents of raizel inks. Then go to Window and hit Attributes to pull out the Attributes panel, which allows you to apply overprint effects on your fills and strokes. Next, head back to Window and click on the Separations Preview panel. This panel allows you to see all the colors you're currently working with. Please note that we're not going to be working at all with cmyk. We're only going to be working with the 3 or 4 spot colors of your choice that are available up here in the swatches panel. I'm going to do a very quick and simple demo. If you want to do something more complicated or if you have any questions at all, please get in touch with me or anyone in the layout team and we'll do our best to address your questions. Alright, so I'm just going to make 3 circles. And I'm going to color each one with a chosen spot color. So this will be hot pink, this will be blue, and this will be orange. I'm going to turn on the stroke for now. If I turned on the cmyk right here, you can see that nothing in my artwork changes, and that's because I'm only using the 3 spot colors of my choice to color these circles. So in fact, I can turn off all the colors that I'm not using in the separations preview panel, and it should not affect my artwork at all because I can still see the spot colors I am using, which is hot pink, blue, and orange. I want to do some overprinting effects on these circles, so I'm going to head over here and turn on Overprint Fill. What this does is tells the printer to print the pink circle and then print the blue circle over the pink circle and then print the orange circle over both. So what that does is it overlaps the colors one on top of each other. And this is great because even though you're only working with 3 spot colors, you can create even more colors by the overlapping effects of both. Say you don't want these circles to overlap. Illustrator automatically knocks out shapes if you turn off Overprint Fill. What does that mean for us? I'm going to save a copy of this as a PDF file. And I'm going to open that up in Adobe Acrobat. If we go into Tools, Print Production, and Output Preview, and I turn off cmyk right here, what that does is it creates automatic knockouts. So if I turned off orange, you can see that the blue and the pink area where the orange overlaps has been knocked out. So that's just white right there. That way you won't see any overlapping effects of colors going on. Versus if I turned on overprint fill and I save the copy again as another PDF, and I turn that and I open that on Adobe, and we took a look again at the simulate overprinting here in output preview and turned off cmyk. What that does is it doesn't knock out any of the colors at all. So here's pink, it's a full circle. Here's blue, that's also a full circle. And here's orange, that's a full circle. So it'll tell the printer to print the full shape in full color of each of these inks, which will create that overlapping effect. The same goes for strokes. If I added a stroke to this of blue, and I added a stroke to this of pink, right now I don't have overprint stroke turned on, so that will create knockouts in these areas where the pink goes on top of everything. That's going to be knocked out. Let me just show you what that looks like. Save a copy, PDF, raizel template, pink stroke. Okay. So let me open that up, and if I turned off pink, you can see that all the areas with pinks have been whited out. So those shapes are knocked out. It tells the printer not to print beyond this area and to reserve this white space just for the pink. Same with blue and orange. So this, right now I'm only showing the blue. See, this blue is getting knocked out because the pink goes right on top of that. And the purpose for that is to show 100 opacity pink without it intermingling with a different color. So without that intermingling with blue or overlapping with blue. Right there. So that's how to knock out areas for the stroke. You can turn on overprint strokes as well. What that does is it just overlaps your stroke with your fill. So you get this band right in the middle where the pink overlaps with the blue to create this purple. So that might also be an interesting effect for you to explore. Another thing you can do with spot colors is you can apply effects on them. So I'm gonna click on this and I'm gonna apply a gradient to it. Say I want a radial gradient of pink in the middle, radiating out to blue, or in fact you can radiate out to pink but with opacity of 20% or lighter. And what that does is it creates a gradation of pink that's lightening out outwards. You can even make this 10% to make that more dramatic, but I'm going to keep it at 20%. You can also apply transparency effects to this. I'm going to pull out the transparency panel right there, and you can make this 50% transparency for some interesting effects, or 70%. I'm going to keep it at 70% for now. Another similar effect would be to change the tint or fill percentage. I'm going to pull out the color panel, and from this drop down menu right here, I'm going to click on show options, and I can change the percentage of this to 50% to make this blue lighter, or 80%. And I have overprint fill turned on, so it's interacting with the gradient right here, which is pretty interesting. I'm gonna keep that at 100% for now. So there's that interaction going on, which you can explore for your illustration. If you want to make this blue come forward in front of this gradated fill circle without overprinting effects, and also if you wanted to make it come forward in front of this pink, you can go to Object and expand Fill and Stroke. Actually, I'm just going to expand the stroke and leave the fill alone, because right now this area is the stroke and inside is the fill, and I just want to expand the stroke. Now the stroke is its own thing, meaning it's its own outlined shape. It's no longer following. Let me ungroup that to show you what that did. I'm just going to click on my stroke, or what was formerly my stroke. When I clicked on Object Expand Stroke, it created a filled in shape in the shape of the stroke. So if this were still a stroke, you would see like a path running down the middle of it. But now the paths go around it. It's outlining the stroke. So this stroke is no longer a stroke, it's an outlined filled path or shape. So that's its own thing now. I can just click on this, right click, arrange, bring to front, and now that this is no longer stroke, it's a filled outlined shape. If I want overprinting on this, I'd have to turn on overprint fill. But if you don't want overprinting and you want to keep that running in front of the shape, then you would just leave that and not click on any overprinting effects. That will knock out this area, this whole area under it. Let's see that in action. Save as PDF. Knock out blue stroke. So if I turn off blue, you can see that this whole area has been knocked out in order to prevent any overprinting going on in this area where the blue stroke or filled outlined path goes through the orange. That's what that does. Say you want to have more control over your artwork and you want to control areas where there's overprinting, you want to control areas where there's not overprinting, and you want them to be selective in different areas of the shape. I know that sounds really confusing, but I'll clarify what I mean shortly. Alright, right now there's overprint turned off here. I'm going to turn that on. And see how this is still a stroke. If I clicked on this, the paths are running around it, so this is a filled shape, but this is definitely still a stroke because the stroke is running through the middle of this. And that's one way you can tell that it's still a stroke. It's like a line that's been stroked. It's like right here, stroke. Okay, I'm gonna expand. I'm gonna go to Object and I'm gonna go to Expand. This time I'm gonna expand both the fill and the stroke. And I'm going to ungroup. Okay, when I ungrouped it, the opacity went back to 100%. I'm gonna knock this back to 70%. I kind of like my stroke to have the opacity of 100%. I'm gonna keep it that way. And I'm gonna do overprint fill on this one. Okay. And also overprint fill on this one. So now your artwork's looking a little cray. Say I want to do overprinting on parts of the circle but not on other parts, or I want to do overprinting on parts of the stroke but not on other parts. One way you can do that is to highlight your shapes and go to Window, go to Pathfinder, Tool, and hit Trim. Trim separates all the different overlapping areas into its own thing. So if I went in and I clicked on, you want to right click and ungroup them first so you can manipulate the individual separate parts. So if I went in and I said, okay, for this part I don't want overprinting, I want this whole area knocked out, I want this to be pure orange, turn off overprint right there. So now you have selective overprint effects. Or for example, for this part, I want it to be just this pure blue, and I don't want it to be overprinting with this orange color to create this muddy grayish color right there. So you could just pull that out. Actually, don't pull that out because the blue is going over it. Right click, select next object below, and the next object below is the orange segment of this. So if I deleted that orange segment, then the only thing that's left is this blue stroked area. So if I pull that out, as you can see, it's been manually knocked out. Right there, it's been knocked out. That's why you're only seeing pure blue, even though my overprint fill is turned on. I'm gonna undo what I did. I'm gonna undo deleting, this is the blue part. Sorry, I'm gonna undo deleting this orange part. You could really just turn off overprint fill, and that will also automatically knock it out when you publish this to PDF. If you don't want the blue to be there, you can just delete that. If you just want the pure orange, you can delete this part right there. So I gave you options for pure blue and pure orange. Okay, that's slightly offset. I'm gonna undo moving that. If you want this to be, so the orange is over the blue. So if you want your orange not to be overprinting, you can just turn off overprint fill. There. Okay, so you turned off overprint fill, but the opacity of this is still 70%. So if you really want it to not overprint and not be semi-transparent, you can turn that up to 100%. There's your 100% orange. But if you wanted this color to match this color, you know that this part is not overprinting with blue at all. So you're definitely gonna need to get rid of this blue area and put that orange back. And the way to do that without having to move everything around is to click on this, right click, select next object below, which will select the blue segment right there. As you can see, it shows you what's selected. Just delete that. Then you can have the same orange running throughout this area. So right now you've got this pink selected. If you don't want the pink to be overprinting, then turn off overprint fill, which will automatically knock out this area to create your pure pink color. And you can also do things like delete this segment, and then you'd have this cool like offset effect right there. Or you can also delete this segment and you'd have a cool effect right here where this color this stroke kind of ends right here. Let me check that out. Yeah, so it's seamless. So that might be interesting for you to try out. That's how those are your options for creating knockouts and controlling where your overprints are going. Hopefully this is helpful to you. The next tutorial goes over how to create separations using Adobe Acrobat. Now you don't need to do this. You just need to provide your Illustrator files to us and make sure you're only using 3 or 4 spot colors, and we can create the separations for you to provide to the printer. But for your personal learning pleasure, you can head over to tutorial number 2 to learn how to do that. Tutorial number 3 takes you through actual raizel prints, so you can see some samples of what overprinting looks like on an actual printed sheet. And the last tutorial shows you how to work with spot colors and raster images, not vector images like these ones in Illustrator, but raster images like photos and paintings and drawings. And so you'll learn how to do that in Photoshop with spot colors in tutorial number 4. So hopefully that helps, and thank you so much.